Welcome to Gabby and Roger's cooking show. Smash that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Today we're making classic beef stew. Be better when you're quarantined with COVID virus than at home. As a classic beef stew, make you feel better. First of all, we've got 600 grams to a kilo of diced beef. Doesn't have to be too small, big chunks of that. Use the cheapest cuts if you can, because we're going to cook it for about 3 or 4 hours. So it doesn't matter if there's a bit of fatty in there, that's nice and flavoursome. In here we've got about 400 to 500 grams of potatoes. I've got them in water so they don't go brown at the moment. We've got 1 large onion, which is just diced roughly. Again, don't worry about chopping things too fine because we're going to cook it for so long. 1 or 2 mushrooms here for added flavour in the base. We've got 3 cloves of garlic there, again roughly chopped. In here we've got 3 medium carrots diced into a size like this, nice and bitey, and 3 or 4 sticks of celery. We've got the green bits in there, throw it all in. It's a stew after all, we can put everything in there. We've got a couple of bay leaves we'll put in once everything's ready there. We've got, using about 1/4 of a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon. Use a nice beefy wine, something strong. Use a Cab Sav or a Shiraz Sauvignon. $10 is all you need to pay for a bottle. That goes well with all the other flavours. We're going to use about 750 mils of beef stock. Use the salt reduced so we can control what the salt is like later on. Add a little bit more, you can't take it out. I've got 2 tablespoons of tomato paste just to flavour it up. We've got 30 to 40 grams of just plain flour. That'll help thicken up the sauce. We're going to use a teaspoon of dried oregano, a teaspoon of dried thyme, and we're going to use a teaspoon of smoked paprika to give it a nice sort of barbecuey, deeper flavour. We're going to use only 2 or 3 drops of fish sauce, which enhances in the protein or with the proteins and also with the onions to add a really nice deep flavour. We're going to use about 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce. Don't use too much of that because it'll make everything taste just like that. First of all, we're going to fry and seal off the beef, and for that we won't use olive oil, we'll use just a vegetable oil, an oil that can go to a really hot temperature. What you want to do in the pan is to just have a single layer. If you start putting more than a single layer on, it'll end up steaming itself and it won't brown. So do these in batches, 2 or 3 batches, and with a little bit of oil in there. Okay, now we're going to brown the meat in batches. Remember just to have a single layer here, a little bit of vegetable oil in there. Get your pot nice and hot. You can see a bit of smoke there. Now the trick is just pop them in as quickly as you can in a single layer. Don't just pour it in. And we want this nicely browned without turning to mush. That's enough for the first batch, and we're going to cook that for 2 minutes. Don't touch it, whatever you do. Just get in there and stir it up, all the juice will come out of the meat. And just set the timer for 2 minutes. I'll let that do its stuff. Then we'll turn it over, do it for another minute or 2, and then we'll rebatch. Okay, now we're ready for the last batch. Put that in, spread that around. You have to cover just 1 layer. And leave it 2 minutes. And during this time, we'll season it with a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. Keep that 2 minutes on one side and turn it over for another minute. And then it should look like this. browned the beef. Now we've turned the heat right down low. We're going to put the onions in next, so we don't want to burn them as soon as we put them in. So just let the pot cool for a second. Put it back on the heat. A little more vegetable oil. And add the onion. There should be a bit of a sizzle, but you don't want it browning too fast. You want to sweat them down. Take a little bit of time, get them all coated with the oil. And let them soften and go translucent. That'll take about a minute or two. Okay, that's been a minute or two. I've just started to soften. Remember, we're going to cook this for a few hours, so it doesn't really matter. Now we're pouring the garlic. And give that a quick stir. Let that start to sweat. Okay, that's cooking on a nice slow heat. Now add the mushroom. That's good. Now at this stage I add the paprika, give it a little toast, 1 teaspoon. As soon as you toast the paprika you can smell it. It smells wonderful. Once we've got those ingredients in, it's time for the carrots and celery. And at this stage you can turn the heat up a little bit. To about halfway. Get everything coated. Let them heat up a little bit. You hear the sizzle come back after adding the veggies. We can put the meat back in. With all the juice, everything in there. Mix all that through. Now's the time to add the flour. Mix that all through. What we want to do is to cook the flour out a little bit, just so it doesn't taste like it. And it mixes with all the juices and the other vegetables in the pot. Now at this stage the flour is going to try and stick on the bottom. Don't worry about that. We're going to deglaze the bottom of the pan with the wine. Just make sure there's no lumpy bits there that'll burn. Once the flour has mixed in, just let it sit for a minute and let it cook out. Let that cook off for a minute. Give that a good mix through. Now we're just on medium heat. Don't have it on high at this stage. Just let everything mix together. Now you can see the bottom starting to have the flour stick to there, so it's time for a red wine. And we're going to use about a quarter of the bottle. Now at this stage it's quite okay to turn the heat right up, get everything boiling again. And be sure that you scrape all the flour off the bottom, you don't want that sticking later. The alcohol will burn off, so don't worry about any of that. You can still dry it after this. Just make sure the bottom's nice and clean. Put a little bit more in. About a good mix around. Now we're going to add the other liquids, the Worcestershire, and just a couple of drops of fish sauce, just a tiny bit. just 3. And about 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire. Not too much at all. Give that a good mix. So it turns into a gluggy sort of a paste, which is perfect. You can see all that flour has disappeared and that's would have cooked off. So now we're going to add about 750 mils of beef stock. You want the stock just to cover everything. We can always add a little bit more later if it's starting to thicken up too quickly. And with the flour, the sauce will start to thicken up fairly quickly. So just add a little bit more stock if you need to. We're going to add the potatoes. And they're there to absorb all the flavour. And now we add the herbs. 1 teaspoon of thyme and 1 teaspoon of oregano. Now we add our 2 bay leaves. Just pop them in on top. Get them all mixed around. And I can see I need a little bit more stock because we're going to cook this for so long with a lid on, but we'll still need a little bit more liquid. Now remember, we added salt and pepper while we were cooking the beef, so at this stage don't put anything else in except crack of pepper. We'll cook it for an hour or 2 and then we can adjust the saltiness. You can always put more in, but you can't take it out. Once that's all mixed up, just have a good scrape of the bottom again. Make sure there's no flour sticking there because that'll be the first place it'll stick. And just make sure you rub your wooden spoon all along the bottom. Make sure it's all clean. Now at this stage we're going to bring it to the boil. Okay, we've brought that back to the boil. Now what we have to do is put it on a smaller hob and have it really, really gently simmer, so you just see the odd bubble coming up. So we'll put the lid on. I'm going to change the gas hob, turn this one off, and we'll just move this one to the smaller gas hob there. Now what we need to do is stir it every 20 minutes, and we're going to leave it for 3 hours. And we'll come back and see how we are. Make sure you stir it every 20 minutes, set your timer, just to scrape the bottom, make sure that there's none of it sticking on the bottom. We'll see you later. Okay, so this has been cooking for 3.5 hours. Non-stick. If you grab a little bit of potato, you'll see the fork goes in there really soft and it'll just split. That's perfect. Now I've already tasted this and I've just added a tiny little bit of extra salt and we've got a nice balance. You can see with the meat, just really easy to pull apart. That's perfect. Now here you can see it's a little bit liquidy, so we're going to leave the top off of the pot and we're going to bring it up to a little bit more of a boil. And to make it healthy, we're going to put in about a cup of peas, frozen peas. Chuck them in now so they won't go soggy. We'll put them in and we're going to let that come to the boil and reduce a little bit, just so we've got a bit more of a thicker consistency. Now you can serve this with rice, mashed potato. Since there's potato in there, we're going to use some bread. We'd use fresh bread, but unfortunately all the hoarders have taken all the flour and toilet paper. We can't add toilet paper to it. There's none of that around. So let that boil for about 5-6 minutes and it'll be ready to serve. So this has been bubbling away for 10 minutes or so with the peas in it and it's reduced really nicely. So we've got a nice consistency there. What we need to do now, unless you want to chew on a leaf, or you've got koala friends, just get rid of the bay leaves. Got 2 of those. Put in just a grab of fresh parsley and turn the heat off. It's all done. Throw a bit of fresh parsley in, give that a stir. Now we can serve up using a ladle. Beautiful. Serve with rice if you can get it from the supermarket, fresh bread if you can get flour from the supermarket, or some Turkish bread we had in the freezer from our local souvlaki shop. Enjoy!